dear people of Ghana, good morning, and thank you for honoring our invitation to attend this, at least my maiden press conference. On 8th March 2023, the President of the Republic of Ghana delivered a message on the state of the nation under Article 67 of the 1992 Constitution as a symbol and practical demonstration of accountability and with the utmost respect of the people of Ghana. The President, in his delivery, addressed the critical issues of concern to all Ghanaians. The focus of the SONA as on the economic situation of our country and how quickly we are stabilizing the economy and working our way back to the period of rapid economic growth. The SONA provided an honest assessment of our country's situation and sought the support of Ghanaians in addressing the challenges facing our country with hope and confidence, to the best of my recollection. Then on 20th March 2023, the opposition NDC, National Democratic Congress, produced a distorted account of the President's State of the Nation address in an attempt to ride on the emotions of Ghanaians and their political gains. Activities leading to the NDC's UPSA press conference are dramatized as though the NDC had something unprecedented to present. It was an anticlimax because in the end, nothing new was said except the old exaggeration and deliberate misrepresentation of facts. The statement read by the NDC chairman, national chairman, Mr. Johnson Asiedu Nketia, was far from a document seeking to discuss the state of our country. There was no serious analysis of the economy, no assessment of sectoral developments, and no attempt to propose solutions to the current economic challenges. Ordinarily, we would refrain from responding to the NDC on the SONA. However, given the extent of misinformation contained in their statement, we owe it a duty to Ghanaians to strengthen the distortions designed to incite disaffection rather than to inform Ghanaians. My clarification of the NDC's statement will focus mainly on the economy and government. On the other matters to do with the misinformation about the size of the government and the subject of corruption. Now let's take the economy. First, let me thank the good people of Ghana for supporting the government as we work together to resolve the historic economic crisis that has disrupted the global economy and impacted our dear country, Ghana. Ghana's economy was the toast of the world until COVID-19. Before 2020, Ghana was hailed among the fastest growing economies in the world. But COVID-19 disrupted the growth momentum of the economy, and later the Russian-Ukraine war also came on board. As a result of these factors, our economy, which was among the fastest growing economies in the world, started to accelerate in 2020, and the government has committed everything in its toolkit to regenerate it. Ladies and gentlemen, the ravaging impact of COVID-19 and the Russia-Ukraine war on the global economy are visible all around us. But somehow, the NDC has refused to acknowledge nor admit this fact to continue misinforming Ghanaians that this government has mismanaged our economy. So, the NDC's press conference was merely a repetition of their denial of the impact of COVID-19 and the Russia-Ukraine war on the economy. The NDC hopes that by consistently propagating this blatant misinformation, it will get enough Ghanaians to come to believe it. Lies repeated, can sound like truth. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, I'm concerned about this deliberate misinformation campaign by the NDC to deny the impact of COVID-19 and the Russia-Ukraine war on Ghana's economy. This is because over time, by hearing lies repeatedly, it begins to resemble the truth for the consumption of or acceptance of the general public. That's exactly what they sought to do. The media is not exempted from this misinformation campaign because you too are feeling the pinch of the hardships in the country. Our pensioners were recently demonstrating against the inevitable domestic debt exchange program. And many others are concerned about increasing taxes. These real bread and butter issues made it difficult for anyone to believe it is not the government's fault that we are going through these hard times. This is the opportunity the NDC seeks to exploit, to weaponize the hardships caused by these external factors to make the government more unpopular. The plain truth is that this government has managed the economy diligently and well. The hardships we are experiencing in Ghana are being experienced everywhere because of the COVID-19 pandemic and the Russian-Ukraine war. Workers in some of the world's biggest economies are demanding increases in salaries due to historic global inflation. It is happening in the United Kingdom, France, and Germany. In the UK, I was told a couple of weeks ago that they had to ration vegetables and cooking oil. Can you imagine rationing pepper in Ghana? The Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, confirmed the impact of COVID-19 and the Russian-Ukraine war on the United States economy and how difficult the effort to rebuild the economy has been, even for the United States. Kenya, one of the most dynamic economies in East Africa, has recently run out of US dollars. Most fuel and oil importers claim, in Kenya, claim they cannot import the product because they do not have a foreign currency. This has led to widespread fuel shortages in major towns and cities in Kenya, especially in Nairobi, the capital. When called upon by the National Assembly's Finance Committee on 10th March 2023 to explain the situation, the Kenyan Treasury Principal Secretary, Mr. Chris Kaptu, said that the Kenyan shilling was weakening against the US dollar at a very fast rate because of the external shock factors such as the COVID-19 pandemic and the Russia-Ukraine war. In his press conference, or this press conference, rather, you would recall that the NDC chairman was shouting and holding Ivory Coast as a standard Ghana should aspire to become. Can you believe this? The NDC deliberately misrepresented the economic situation in the Ivory Coast by suggesting all is well with our Western neighbors, that is the Ivory Coast. In actual fact, the Ivory Coast, they were advertising as negotiating at the time with the IMF to obtain a $2.6 billion in a blended extended credit facility. Ladies and gentlemen, permit me to quote from the IMF's release after its staff concluded a mission to Ivory Coast on 15th March 2023. Unquote, the Ivorian authorities and IMF staff have reached a broad agreement on the authorities' economic storm reform program that an IMF financial management would support. The authorities are advancing their agenda for deeper economic transformation under the 2021-2025 National Development Plan. They have taken measures to strengthen macroeconomic stability and reverse widening fiscal and external imbalances as the economy has been hit hard by the triple shock of COVID-19 pandemic, global financial tightening, and adverse spillovers from Russian-Ukraine war, end of quote. As it turned out, the NDC as a party are not just incompetent managers of Ghana's economy, but also incompetent researchers. They should have known this. They should have known this about this Ivory Coast negotiated deal just 5 days prior to their press conference. It was obvious. Please share this link with Chairman Asidun Ketia on or his communicators to read about the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic and the Russia-Ukraine war on the Ivorian economy as it has had on Ghana's. Is it projected? The link. You get it. A brief comparison. Record of the two political parties from 2013 to 2019. The two political parties, I mean the NPP and the NDC. Ladies and gentlemen, let's spend a few minutes examining the performance of the NDC and the NPP governments between 2013 and 2019, before COVID-19 and the war. Before COVID-19 and the Russia-Ukraine war, the NPP government recorded an impressive 7% average GDP growth for 3 fiscal years, spanning from 2017 through 2019. Had COVID-19 not happened, Ghana's economy will have continued to grow into 2020. And the story of Ghana's economy today would not be one of hardship, but of growth and prosperity. The NDC Mahama administration performed poorly. Between 2013 and 2016, the NDC returned a mournful 3.9% average growth, and the records are there. GDP declined consistently over that period, 2013 to 2016. Somehow, those who could not manage Ghana's economy in a relatively stable global economic environment suddenly claim they have the magic wand to turn the fortunes of Ghana around in this volatile global economy. Ladies and gentlemen, the NDC took office in 2017 and turned around the mismanaged the NPP rather, took over in 2017 and turned around the mismanaged, collapsed economy inherited from the NDC. The industrial sector grew from 4.3% in 2016 to 15.6% in 2017. The services sector decreased from 2.8% in 2016 to 3.4% in 2017. And the agricultural sector also grew from the dismal 2.7% in 2016 to 6.2% in 2017. Let me remind you that the abysmal performance of the NDC in the real sector was against the NDC inheriting a booming economy from the Kufuor-led NPP administration, which gifted the NDC an oil economy, if you will recall, in commercial quantities, of course. After inheriting a booming economy, ex-President Mahama and NDC left their successor, President Nana Addo, a collapsed economy in 2016. Ladies and gentlemen, so we in abroad, na ayedi. We managed the city better before the pandemic and the war. The NPP managed the city with an average depreciation of 6.8% from 2017 to 2021, compared to the NDC's record of 18% average depreciation from 2013 to 2016. Ladies and gentlemen, we are not particularly happy about the level of inflation today. We are not particularly happy about it. It has affected our economy badly. But the truth is that it is a global problem. We can't deny it. In February 2023, the United Kingdom's inflation was 10.4%. UK. Up from the usual average of 2.7% since 1989. In Nigeria, just next door, inflation jumped from 1.4% in 2019 to 21.8% in January 2023. That is almost a 50% rise in inflation. The World Economic Outlook report, released on 11th October 2022, forecasted global inflation to rise from 4.7% in 2021 to 8.8% in 2022. That represents about a 50% upward jump in global inflation. Ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, the Nana Addo NPP administration have managed all aspects of the economy better than the NDC would have in this situation. Ghanaians would have been worse off, I can assure you. Comparing the time the NDC went to the IMF for support in August 2014, Ghana had only 7 days worth of imports in net foreign exchange reserves, equivalent to $400 million US. However, when the NPP sought the support of the IMF in July last year, Ghana's international reserves stood at 7.6 billion US dollars, covering 3.4 months of import cover. One of the central claims of the NDC's false State of the Nation address is that this government has overborrowed. This is not true, to say the least, but the NDC keeps repeating it, hoping that lies repeated will look like the truth. The NDC lies to promote this misinformation by computing our debt stock using nominal figures, because it hides their unprecedented rate of debt accumulation. The best way to compute our debt to see which government has borrowed more is by using the rate of accumulation. Former President Kufuor inherited a debt stock of approximately 5.4 million in 2001, to 5.4 billion in 2001, and added about 81% to it. NDC inherited a debt stock of 9.7 billion in 2009. By 2016, they increased it to 122 billion Ghana cedis. That represents 819% growth in the debt stock. God save Ghana.
Amen.
The NPP government, which the NDC characterizes as having overborrowed, has added just about 304% to the debt stock. The 304% of the debt accumulated, the total debt accumulated under this government includes the cost of the banking sector cleanup, you will recall. The government had to cushion depositors, which they cost. So banking sector cleanup was part of it. Energy sector debt payment and the COVID-19 debt. Official data from the Ministry of Finance shows that the nominal debt stock increased by 50% from 2013 to 2014 under ex-President John Mahama. For example, if Ghana owed 80 billion cedis in 2013, the John Mahama administration added 40 billion cedis, making it 120 billion cedis in 2014 alone. Ladies and gentlemen, yes, Ghana has a debt challenge, but it is inaccurate for the NDC to suggest that this government has overborrowed. This misinformation was captured on page 4 of the NDC's press statement. The borrowing narrative the NDC keeps propagating is a product of misleading computation of Ghana's debt designed to misinform and characterize the record, the record of this government. Now, they have recruited their chairman, the national chairman, to sing this deceitful chorus. Ladies and gentlemen, every adult knows, and young people who might not know sought to learn and know that they ought to know and know that in our personal lives, in the lives of our families, is the running of our businesses and enterprises. And while managing the affairs of any country, difficulties are inevitable. Challenges still sometimes occur. However, truth be told, leadership lies in confronting and solving problems as and when they arise. They are bound to come, but you need to solve them. We had COVID-19 and we fixed it. If we had listened to the advice of the NDC, their supposed COVID-19 advisory team, our children and students will have gone to school, or will not have gone to school until maybe 2 years later, because they said the children should stay home. They said the children would die. Not a single student was killed by COVID-19, by the grace of God. Similarly, we are finding solutions to our current economic difficulties. We shall fix the economy. We have done it before in 2001 and 2017. We will fix the economy again. We did what was needed to be done to save lives. We are tackling the 30% cut of the salaries of the president, the vice president, ministers and heads of state-owned enterprises, SOEs. 2, a discretionary 30% cut to central government spending has been implemented. A 50% cut in fuel coupon allocations for all political appointees and heads of government institutions. A 30% cut in fuel coupons allocations for all political appointees and heads of government institutions to ensure efficient use of energy resources. D, suspension of the purchase of imported vehicles for 2022 to reduce total vehicle purchases for the year. E, suspension of all foreign travels except pre-approved statutory travels or critical travels. F, moratorium on the establishment of new public sector institutions has been instituted. A ban on using V8 or its equivalent except for cross-country travels by government officials. Greetings and workshops, or meetings rather, and workshops should be held within the official environment of government facilities. Government-sponsored external training and staff development activities at the Office of the President, ministries and SOEs have been put on hold. The last one is, there's a freeze on tax waivers for foreign companies, while tax exemptions for companies in the free zones will be reviewed, excluding mining and oil and gas companies. No ministry, department, or agency, including SOEs, is permitted to use public funds to purchase and distribute hampers. I don't know whether you received hampers from state institutions. There shall be no printing of diaries, notepads, calendars, and other promotional merchandises by MDAs, MMDAs, and SOEs, state-owned enterprises. a moratorium on bonus payment for SOEs that record losses in the year for which the bonus applies. All non-critical projects that can wait for a year have been suspended. Government has expunged ghost names from payroll through periodic payroll audits and the link of the Ghana card to the payroll. Governments address off-budget expenditures by making sure all government expenditures go through the gift mess. Enforce commitment control within the various ministries, that is, eliminate unauthorized expenditure, as well as ensure that MDAs do not sign contracts without an approved budget. Establish intersectoral working groups to address cross-cutting issues, review contracts, and ensure standard reporting among ministries. Ladies and gentlemen, the preceding measures were among the decisive steps the government is looking to taking to ensure fiscal discipline. The point I intend to make from the expenditure control measures outlined above is that the party and government took the feedback on the size of government seriously, considerably reduced the numbers from the first term, and are working diligently to control the expenditure as shown above. Therefore, it is not true that the government has ignored calls to reduce its size. Instead, the government has been listening to Ghanaians, establishing a more robust control mechanism to manage expenditure whilst maintaining a dynamic team of ministers and appointees to deliver on its mandate at the same time. Ladies and gentlemen, the NDC has been promoting the view that this government has appointed people to needless positions and is saying they are doing nothing or something. It must be stated on record that many of the workers at the presidency are public sector employees. Today, out of the 995 workers at the presidency, 995, 658, representing 56%, are 66% are public sector employees, period. As a matter of fact, the NDC government had more presidential staffers than this administration. Whilst we have 44 presidential staffers and 1 minister of state at the presidency, the Mahama NDC administration had 61 presidential staffers, 6 ministers of state, and the 3 wise men. Under President Mahama, the NDC appointed people to all kinds of roles, including the following: evaluator, brand executive officer, administrative manager, citizenship development officer. I don't know what it means. Personal assistant, research and monitoring officer, research assistant, officer manager, or manager officer, senior executive assistant stroke officer, senior administrative liaison officer, corporate stroke stakeholder relations manager. I can cite more, but that would be pointless because every president has a constitutional duty to create the relevant offices and portfolios to deliver on his or her vision and development for the good people of Ghana. What you deem appropriate, which is reasonable, you go for it so you can deliver on your promise. Ladies and gentlemen, the NDC-led government has demonstrated its utmost, the NPP-led government has demonstrated its utmost commitment to fighting corruption. You would recall that an NPP administration led by former President John Agyekum Kufuor passed the Public Procurement Act, Act 663, and the Whistleblowers Act, Act 720, to cure corruption in public sector. The passage of these laws to regulate procurement in the public sector has saved the economy billions of cedis from going into private pockets. Before the enactment of these acts by the Kufuor administration, the NDC had been in power for 19 years, but did nothing about the naked corruption in public procurement. Consistent with the NPP's anti-corruption regulatory history established under former President Kufuor, President Akufo-Addo established the Office of Special Prosecutor, the OSP, by an act of parliament, and has empowered the special prosecutor to fight corruption proactively. In addition, the historic Right to Information RTI Act has been passed. The Akufo-Addo administration continues to demonstrate support for anti-corruption agencies such as the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice and the Auditor General's Department to protect the public purse. Ladies and gentlemen, the NDC is a party that talks about corruption, but not a party that fights corruption. If the fight against corruption has been a challenge for any group of persons in Ghana, it is the NDC. They are the only political party in this Fourth Republic whose appointees or officials have been convicted and sentenced for corruption-related offenses. Do you remember the Create, Loot, and Share? That's the NDC's record. The media may recall how the NDC vilified former President Kufuor and his appointees, claiming they were corrupt. But when the NDC won in 2008 and formed a government in 2009, until 2016, they could not convict a single appointee of the Kufuor administration. This is the fact on record. Today, the NDC is again talking about corruption and labeling President Akufo-Addo and his appointees as being corrupt. I appeal humbly to Ghanaians to ignore and disregard the NDC's shouts and name-calling as a ploy to create the impression of widespread corruption and to align itself undeservedly with public disapproval of the acts of corruption. I call on the rank and file of the NPP to arise and mobilize behind our government to defeat the onslaught of the NDC propaganda. This means that all of us in the NPP, from polling stations onwards, must become canvassers and communicators to help disabuse the minds of our fellow Ghanaians from the misinformation that the NDC is feeding this nation. Ladies and gentlemen, let me end by passing this piece of advice through you, to the NDC. As a political party, the NDC has a sacred responsibility to be honest and upfront with Ghanaians in all things that they do. The NDC must desist from the habit and strategy of deceit in its quest for power. We know they can campaign to come to power, but the lies and deceit must be eschewed. Such methods are often short-term, from where I stand, but have long-term ramifications for democracy, public confidence, and not the least, the global perception and embrace of our dear country, Ghana. Thank you for Ghana, for coming here, and God bless you all.